Hey there, horror movie tea sippers.
The following podcast will contain spoilers for the movie we are about to review. If you have not seen the movie and do not wish to have anything ruined prematurely, then please do not continue to listen until after you have seen the movie.
And welcome to the Horror Movie Tea Podcast. Today we are covering I wouldn't even go so far as to call it a classic, but it has quickly become popular in recent years, called The Strangers. But before we go into it, what are you drinking today?
I am drinking Bigelow's Perfectly Mint herbal tea.
So
it's very, very refreshing.
So is it just a bunch of mint, or is there other ingredients?
I'm pretty sure there's other ingredients too, but it's mostly mint. And it's just this it's hot tea, but it has that cooling after effect.
Oh.
It's really nice and refreshing.
I love it. Well, I have been sick of recording episodes and just cycling through all of my teas. So I finally got some new tea, and this is by one of my favorite companies. Numi and Rishi are both my favorite companies, and the reason being is a lot of tea companies, the tea leaves they use is essentially just scraps, and so the tea tends to taste a lot more bitter and it's not as good of quality. While these guys, they use loose leaf tea, and they actually sell loose leaf tea if you prefer to scoop your own. But they sell sell their tea in these little satchel bags. So it's really good tea for those that are loose leaf fiends. They're it just tastes so much better, but you want the convenience of the satchel. But the tea I'm drinking today is blueberry hibiscus. And it smells really good. And what's interesting is, I don't know if you've heard about this or if anyone has heard about this, but there's actually a little bit of controversy about the satchel bags that a lot of tea companies use, because a lot of the times they'll bleach them, and then the material itself is kind of questionable on how safe it is, if it leaches any chemicals into the water. So these guys, it's kind of might be hard to see, but these guys actually use a special satchel bag that's made out of food safe plant material. So it's biodegradable, and then there's no they to humans. So I don't know. It's a pretty cool company. So if you guys haven't heard of it, totally check it out, because nice. I don't know, they seem like they have organic teas, and don't quote me on this, but I think they might be fair trade. But anyways, it's just a good company overall.
I love the biodegradable bags, because then you can throw them in a compost bin and mix it around, and it gets all the good stuff in there, and you don't have to worry about cutting it out of the bag.
Mm-hmm.
And pouring the contents in there and all. It's just so much easier to just chunk it in there and call it good.
And I love, and also this tea bag that they use has a lot more gaps than your normal tea bag, and so I feel like it steeps a lot better. It's only been in my cup for a few minutes, and the water is completely dark. It is fully saturated with the tea. I'm just oh, and it smells so freaking good. I can't wait. This is the first time I'm actually trying this tea. I saved it just for this episode, so. I probably, like I said, to steep it at 200 degrees. And I think that if I would have listened to the instructions, the flavor might be a little bit stronger. But overall, it smells really good, and the taste is pretty good too.
Nice.
But anyways, sorry, I went on a tangent. I have to support my two favorite tea companies, and maybe they'll find in their hearts to sponsor us one day, because I would fucking die. But anyways,
goodness.
Oh, sorry, I'm going on a tangent. Okay, so I don't know if Rishi does this. One more thing. I don't know if Rishi does this, but I know what's cool about Numi is they actually steam it to where the tea leaves curl up. And then so whenever you put them in water, they expand, and then that's how they steep. So, but anyways, I'm sorry. All right.
The Strangers.
Yes. Sorry, guys.
Let's get to the movie,
this is
guys.
Horror movie tea. We were allowed to talk about tea. But anyways. All right. So The Strangers. This couple goes to the boyfriend's father's cabin. Well, it's not really a cabin. It's like it's a house in the middle of...
It's a summer home.
Okay, thank you. And they arrive with the girl is looking very upset, and then the boyfriend is looking really frustrated. And come to find out, he had asked her to marry him, and she said that she was not ready yet. And so he had brought her to the summer home with the expectation of her saying yes, and there's like roses scattered everywhere. There's like a nice placement on the table. Like it was going to be like fully...
There was champagne on ice.
Yeah.
Rose petals everywhere. Candles ready to be lit everywhere.
Yeah, it's going to be fully decked out, and so it was extremely awkward to come to this house with the different.
And it sounded like they were going to go on a road trip too.
Yeah.
Afterwards.
Yeah.
Like they were going to spend the night there, relax, and then go on a road trip.
Yeah.
Ew.
But so they've kind of settled, like she's been able to take a bath, and they've kind of like settled down a little bit. Like they're still obviously shaken by the situation, but they've had enough time to kind of process it a little bit more. And they hear a knock on the door, and it's this girl who is covered in shadow because the light bulb was partially unscrewed, so the light wouldn't turn on. And she's like, "Is Tamara home?" and this is like 4 a.m, and they're like, "No, you have the wrong house." And so it's like, obviously that was really weird. And the boyfriend ends up leaving for a little bit so that way they can have their alone time. And while it's Kristen, right? Yeah. Kristen is home. She's just like camping by the fire and stuff like that. But then she hears the knock again, and it's the girl. And she was smart and did not open the door. She just was talking through the door. But there's like a bunch of banging and stuff. Anyways, the whole movie then progresses to these 3 masked people trying to essentially tease them because they've already made it into the house, and so they can kill them whenever they want.
They're toying with them the entire time.
Yeah. And so, but at the end of the movie, they end up getting killed. And I mean, I guess you could say that Kristen survives, but I feel like
we don't know how long she survives.
Yeah, they really don't. Yeah, they leave it kind of open. Like, I'm assuming she more than likely died because they knew what they were doing. I mean, it wasn't their first rodeo to do that to people. But anyway.
Well, it sounded like it was one of their first times. The blonde.
Yeah,
because the other chick said it'll get easier.
That's true. That's true. But anyways, entertainment. Would you like to go first, or do you want me to?
I feel like you're going to have a lot more to say. I love this movie. I have loved it since it came out. It's amazing. It has lots of intense scenes. They do have some jump scares, but it makes sense where they're at. So I give it an 8. It's like a solid 8 for me. I watch this every year around Halloween, and I love it. I know it messed you up, though.
It did. Okay, so story time. Story time with Alyssa. So I had watched this movie when it very first came out. I was either 17 or 18. But anyways, I was dumb. and decided to. I didn't watch it in theater; that had already come out on video, and I had decided to watch it in my upstairs, like, teenage
Loft,
nook.
kinda.
Yeah, with all of the lights off and nobody really like around. And that movie messed me up for months afterwards. I was having so many nightmares. I was so freaking paranoid. But as we were watching, I was really struggling with the rating system. And I want to give it an 8, but thinking of all of the other movies I've watched that I've given 8s to, I just don't feel like it lives up to that expectation. So I'm going to give it a very solid 7. Like, if we had a 0.5 scale, it would be a 7.5. Like,
You can. We've done that before.
Yeah. But
we make the scale, woman.
we're the hosts. We call the shots here. But, like, one thing this movie does extremely well that I think is really what makes it as scary as it is the fact that it takes a very simplistic situation and it plays on people's fear. And also they do a very good job with playing around with the sound. Like, the record player, when it's, like, on repeat, or when it's being randomly turned on or turned off. Like, it's a...
Or the wind chimes.
Yes. Like, this movie, they paid a lot of attention to sound, and it makes all the difference in the world as far as how intense it is. Like, if they had not paid attention to that aspect of the movie, I feel like the tension would have played out a little bit differently. I guess the only thing that, well, not, like, frustrates me. It's a very tense movie, but you can very much tell with the fact that they're toying with them literally for a movie length. You know, it's very... It kind of almost takes me out of it, where I'm like, oh, I know that they're just playing around with them because they need to extend the movie length. I don't know. I know I'm just being super picky, but yeah, I don't know. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really find that an issue. I know that they're very, very sadistic and very psychotic, so they really enjoyed playing with them and really scaring them, because it would have been over too quick for them to just kill them outright.
Yeah.
They didn't want it to be just like a slasher, full-on slasher. They wanted it to be more psychological. There were a lot more mind games in this than just gore.
Yeah.
For the sake of gore. And there wasn't. In this movie, there was actually not really any gore for the sake of gore.
Yeah.
All of the blood and everything made sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess another critique I have is, like, especially in the beginning, the loud pounding. Like, that definitely, you know, them playing on the sound aspect, that really, like, startles you. But I feel like as the movie progressed, they kind of relied on that tactic a little bit too heavily, to where there's a lot more banging, and it kind of left the effect of it for me.
See, I felt like they kind of used it as almost a crescendo. Like, they built it up with it. And they used it also, especially on the door, to signal where they were at. So they'd bang on the door, and then you'd hear the wind chimes, which is on the other side of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'd hear a window, like them hitting a window on a different side. So you're hearing all these different sounds and everything, and you're trying to figure out, where are they?
Yeah.
Are they right here? Or are they on the other side of the house? Are there multiple there? Because at first you don't know.
Yeah, it's just the one, and then the two,
Yes.
and then they reveal the third towards the end. But it's like, as is like once you realize that there's 3 of them, you're like, oh, that makes sense why the sound was coming from everywhere.
How they're able to move so fast and get to different places and all. It's not just 2, there are 3. And you also hear just the different sounds that they use are incredible. There's one time, or a couple times, where they have this like metal scraping, almost like they're dragging like a shovel or something on the sidewalk or concrete. And then you hear the wind chime. And it's just...
Yeah.
I'm sitting here like there are way too many windows in this damn house.
Yeah.
Like, if they have a shovel, that window's screwed. Like,
yeah, and plus
you need to get to a better room because you are not in a good place right now.
Plus the I don't think this falls under cinematography, but I guess the set that they used where they really played on the shadows.
It really did.
And they also focused on like colors. Like inside the house, it seemed a bit warmer, but then like off in the distance, in this super dark area, you'd see like one of the masks pop up. So they played very well to that, and it makes you... It turns a house that initially feels very safe into a house that's like, no matter where you turn, you're not safe at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and just I love their usage of that too. Just seeing them in the background while they're trying to get away or while they're looking around. Just every time I notice them in the background, there's just this cold chill that runs through me, and I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
Like in some, you can see just a small blur in the background of movement. And it's very, very deliberate and kind of slow. Like, they're walking. They're not running or anything. It's not a flash of movement. You're seeing just the slow, blurry movement. It's just blurry because they're in the background and they're focused on the foreground. And you're just...
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have a lot more to add on the entertainment scale. I think, like, the actors... do a pretty good job for you to get sucked into their storyline and want to root for them. Like, obviously, this movie overall has a very overlooming sense of dread. Like, you know, from the situation it starts off with, that's completely unrelated to the plot of the movie. You know, they had the almost like a fight or whatever because the outcome of the proposal, and then with having to go through this situation, and then for it to really not have any sort of a happy ending. This entire movie is dread, and so it's like, I hate, like, this movie is definitely entertaining, but it's not pleasant or enjoyable for me to watch. But it's because of they really did a really good job. So if you're just wanting a fun horror movie to watch at night, this is probably not that horror movie.
This is not one of the fun ones. This is it's gonna make you paranoid one.
Yeah, it's gonna chill you to the bone. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, like you were saying at the very beginning, from the get-go, they have just this very ominous feeling. It's very depressing. You can tell something has just happened to upset them both, because he's very frustrated or upset, and they pan to her, and you can see the wet trails from tears where she was crying. So clearly she's upset too. And when he gets out and slams the car door behind him, she kind of jumps and is just like, you know, it's a bad situation that you're walking into right from the very beginning.
And they are kind of breaking the trend, because typically in horror movies, in the beginning, they make it very happy.
Oh, yeah.
And they introduce the characters just like this movie did, but just the tone of it is so happy. And then they kind of like progress down. But this movie, no, it starts at a low point and gets lower and lower and lower.
Like, they have a slight high point when they're starting to talk and all and get a little bit better about everything, and they just really make you feel bad for them right at the very beginning, honestly. You feel bad for them and your heart goes out to them a little bit.
Yeah.
And then they start to talk and all, and then they're put in this horrible situation and you're really rooting for them so they can make it work and all in the end. And it just doesn't get there. They don't ever get the chance to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's all the more heartbreaking there. But it's a good movie. They do a lot of things well. The characters themselves, they do a lot of things right. They do some things kind of stupid, but it's all very believable, in my opinion.
For the most part, but I have more comments once we get to the realism scale.
Yeah.
I honestly think, like we've reiterated, like this is a pretty well made movie. There's a few things that didn't quite live up to my 8 rating compared to the other movies I've seen that are more like classics. Like this is a movie that compared to some of the other classics is just a little bit more forgettable, but just in my opinion. But
the opposite. I love this movie.
I don't know, maybe I don't know. I don't know. It just
I don't know what this movie's got you all salty about.
Well, no, it's just like, for instance, Friday the 13th, that's going to continue to live in people's minds. But it's like The Strangers, it's like whenever it's brought up, people say really good things about it, but it's not held on the same level as Friday the 13th,
Not quite.
Yeah. So
I will agree there. Friday the 13th is better, but
that I'm just putting into perspective, like, what I mean by, this may not be a movie that will live for years and years and years and be constantly, like, rewatched and be remembered by, like, generations to come, like some of the older movies. But, I mean, as far as a more modern movie, definitely...
It's definitely one of the better.
Yeah, definitely one
movies.
of the better made ones.
For sure.
But it just sucks because I don't, it's like, it's obviously a good movie, but I can't quite pinpoint what doesn't quite live up to the classics. Because there's nothing wrong with having a simplistic storyline. That's not the problem. I don't know. I can't quite put my finger on it. It just doesn't seem quite there. But if anyone has any ideas... Is it
because of the lack of closure?
No, because, I mean, some of the classics, they don't have any closure.
Yeah.
Like Nightmare on Elm Street, like the ending leaves off on a cliffhanger.
Yeah. I do feel like they didn't need her at the very end grabbing the kid's hand and screaming.
That was very unnecessary. They could have just left her dead, which would have sucked, but I mean, they were implying that they're going to die either way.
Yeah. And that poor kid already needed therapy after seeing all that. Don't make it worse by her grabbing him and screaming. Like, that, really?
I guess another interesting choice, too, was you kind of see the carnage in the beginning, and then they replay it at the end, only this time going to the main characters' bodies. I don't know if that was completely necessary. Maybe they could have showed a little bit less in the beginning. And then, so that way whenever they replay it at the end, you don't feel like you're literally rewatching the same clips until they show the new footage at the end. That's my biggest complaint about the cinematography. But, I mean, they were very deliberate, and they knew exactly what direction they want to take the movie. So yeah, that's all of my thoughts.
And it does have a clear progression too.
Yeah.
It's not all disjointed or anything.
No.
There's not really any... There's like one flashback maybe of them at the wedding reception, their friend's wedding reception, and then him bringing her outside and he's going to propose.
Yeah.
But then that's it. It's like, what, 2 minutes? maybe 3.
Yeah, you don't even see
Maybe.
how she reacts.
Yeah.
It just comes back to her, and she's like, I just wasn't ready.
Yeah.
Oh, but, well,
So.
are you ready for the realism scale?
Yep.
Okay. Do you want me to go first, or do you want to go first?
You can go first.
Okay. So, before I give my rating, kind of my thought process through this is I feel like the main characters themselves reacted pretty realistically. There's a few things that I probably would have done a little bit differently, but it's not out of the realm of possibility for someone else being like, oh, I would do that exact same thing. Where it kind of starts getting knocked down for me is the likelihood of this happening. Now, knowing I'm a huge crime buff, and so it's like I know there are like freak incidences like this happening. So it's not completely out of the realm of possibility, but it is still pretty unlikely. So I'm going to put it at a 6.
It's higher than I thought you would give it.
Yeah, no, like the character's pretty realistic. They were trying to be smart, but obviously the killers were thinking several steps ahead of them by disconnecting the phone line, getting rid of their cell phones, and that actually another huge plot hole that modern horror movies tend to have is the fact that it's like, oh, well, if they had a cell phone, then problem would have been solved. So they went ahead and was like, no, they literally don't have cell phones because they were destroyed or the battery was taken out. So they were very smart in going ahead and addressing that issue. And then the killers themselves, well, I guess another reason why it's a 6 is, even though the killers are, even though unlikely in the realm of possibility, the fact that, the victims would be trying to run away, you see them behind them, and then all of a sudden they disappear. It's like they wouldn't teleport.
Well, no, they didn't. A lot of times they actually did show them in the background moving off to the side.
Well, but like for instance, whenever she's coming back from the barn back to the house and you see all 3 of them, and then all she does is like look around, and then when she looks back, they're suddenly gone. It's like it's in a field. Like there's no way that she would not see them just like headed towards her.
Oh no, there were some trees there, so.
But
I wasn't that upset about it.
But I think that's why this movie does scare me, because there's some movies that are just so over the top that you're like, there's no way that this would happen, especially if it's like a like Friday the 13th, where it's just such a I was going to say magical, but that sounds really stupid.
Supernatural.
Thank you. A very supernatural killer. It's like you can very easily disassociate and be like, that's not going to happen. But like in a case like this where they're humans too, but they're nuts and they just want to like, play with you
They're
for the
just
fun of it.
Psycho killer, yeah.
It's like, even though it is unlikely, there is still, in our history, there's proof that cases like that unfortunately can happen. So that's why I rated it so high.
Yeah, I'd give it about a 6 as well. Their reactions are pretty good. There's just a couple of nitpicky things here and there that really bug me, and a lot of it is just them being dumb, not really thinking about things. And I'm sorry, if it's 4 a.m., there ain't no way in hell I'm going to the door. I don't care how loud you're knocking. Yeah. No, this is not my house. I'm just a guest here. I am not going to the door. If it is important and you know that we're in here and we know you have our phone numbers. You can call us.
Well, plus, I like what Kristen did to where she just shouted through the door while he opened the door. And they actually say that I mean, they didn't have a peephole, unfortunately, but it's like if you have a peephole and you see someone knocking that you don't know, to not open the door, to shout through the door to see what they want, and then go from there to assess the safety. Because the problem is whenever you open the door, if they're big enough or bigger than you, they can easily just push through. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was dumb. And then also him going to the barn for the radio and she just like standing at the house. Like that was really frustrating. I'm like, she should have followed him. Mm-hmm. She should have grabbed a knife. Yeah. And she should have followed him and maybe like, you know, been like walking backwards or something to like make sure that his back's covered.
Exactly. I know that, well, they had a knife out and then they kept dropping it and all, or leaving it elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I know that house has more than one goddamn knife.
Yeah.
No. Sets of knives have way more than just that one. That might be the biggest one in the kitchen. But there are other knives that will work just as well.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Grab another weapon. Go back to back if you need to. But go together. Don't separate out. When you split up, that's asking for more trouble. You're already outnumbered as it is.
Yeah.
And clearly they know the area much better than you do.
Yeah.
So you're already at a severe disadvantage.
Yeah.
No.
Completely agree. Like, if anything, like, not just, like, have multiple knives in your hand. Like, just do something that definitely was extremely frustrating. And then she ended up going to the barn anyways. So it's just, a dumb scene.
Might as well have just gone together.
Exactly.
Yeah. No. And when they shot the friend that he had called for a ride, the friend didn't call out when he went into the house.
That was really weird.
He didn't call out for them at all. He didn't turn off the record player at all. Like, you want to hear anything that's going on, turn it off.
Yeah. Like, the friend acted extremely dumb.
A little bit. And they had made mention he was probably drunk or drinking or something to that effect. He probably didn't have all his faculties, but if that's the case, he shouldn't have been driving. But still, we don't condone drinking and driving here, guys. But when the main character, James, had the gun and he was watching the doorway, he does not practice proper gun safety. And I know they mentioned that he doesn't really know how to use it very well and all. Like, he doesn't know how to work it, but you don't have your finger right on the trigger unless you're going to shoot right then.
Yeah.
Because he had already called for help. And they were saying, like, we're going to stay here until the cops come or whatever. Even though they hadn't been called yet.
Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of a disconnect. They're like,
I guess he was hoping that someone nearby had heard the gunshots or whatever and would call the cops, but or would be patrolling the area and see the damage to the cars and all and come take a look, and the door damage to the door and come take a look. But
sorry, go ahead.
But he ends up shooting the friend immediately. As soon as he steps into the doorway. And that was not gun safety. This is how you kill people.
Well,
in horrible ways.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of thinking about it, and with as intense of a situation they were in, I can see him, forgetting that the friend was coming. But yeah. I do agree, like, whether or not he was trained in gun safety, thinking, like, if he had been trained and his finger wasn't, like, on the trigger waiting to shoot, like, if one of the killers had come and then was coming towards them, that would have given him plenty of time to put his finger on the trigger. And actually, for a shotgun, it's better if they're closer anyways, because it creates more impact.
Mm-hmm. They're more of a close-range weapon. They do more damage that way. So if he had waited just a minute, then he could have seen that it was his friend. Now, to be fair, the friend probably would have died anyway because one of them was behind him with an axe. So if he didn't get shot in the head, he probably would have had his skull cleaved in two from the killer behind him. And it still would have been traumatic to them regardless.
Yeah.
But they also didn't check the friend's body for the cell phone.
Yeah, that was
at all.
Pretty dumb.
At any point in time, no one checked the body for a cell phone.
Yeah, they didn't address that at all with the killers or the main characters.
No one. Everyone just kind of ignored his existence after that.
Yeah.
They're like, ew, face is partially gone. Like, I don't want to go near that. And just kind of left it at that.
I will say for a character that they don't really establish that long before they kill them off, they actually did a really good job on making that scene impactful. But I think it's because you care for the main characters and seeing them upset about the death. And especially how sudden, because all you hear is the music, and then he's just like, hello? And then all of a sudden, like, it cuts off. So, yet again, a great use of the sound, as well as the character development to make a character that I normally wouldn't really care about a little bit more impactful.
And they do little things here and there before they even actually introduce him to show that he is a good friend of theirs. With all the rose petals and everything, the girl asks, when did you do this? Like, when did you even have time to do this? And James said, I came here earlier today with Mike, and that was the guy that was shot.
Yeah.
He's like, he helped me set it up. We thought you'd like it. And then you hear him calling his friend while she's in the bathroom taking a bath. I need you to come pick me up. I know it's a pain to drive all the way out here. It sucks. But it didn't work out like I had planned. I just need to get out. I'm going to leave her the car. If you could pick me up when you get this, please.
Yeah.
I'd appreciate it.
Yeah.
So he is a good friend, and when he gets there, he calls his friend's phone and is like, I got here early. But he kind of jokes around too. You know how I like to wait on you hand and foot.
Yeah.
Get out here.
Yeah. It's amazing how those little personable lines like that like really have an impact on how you think of a character.
Yeah. Now, when his truck gets shot at and the windshield is broken, I'm surprised he didn't have a slightly different reaction there. Like, jump out of the car and run to the freaking house. He gets out and is looking all around like, what the F just happened?
I don't know. I might look around.
Okay, but I see a person there. Obviously, they shot at me. It sounded like a gunshot too. I'm running.
Oh, okay. I forgot that he had seen. I didn't. Are you
can
sure
see the silhouette of the person over the fence.
Okay.
Toward the barn.
But did he actually see them? Okay. Yeah, if I had seen a person,
pretty sure.
Then I'm freaking running. But it's like if there's no one in sight, and I'd think that something like fell from the trees or something crazy like that.
What fell from a tree to make a hole this big, woman?
Okay.
In a windshield.
Well, but if you literally see no one else around, what are you supposed to do? Why, anyways, but...
If there's no one around, that makes it even worse. Super danger.
Oh my god, I almost choked. Don't say things like that when I'm swallowing.
Almost got her. Yeah, so it's just little things like that we're a little nitpicky about, but would have made it a little bit better. Yes, he was probably going to die anyway, but at least they would have had a fighting chance if they weren't entirely stupid about it. So.
Well, and I do feel like they kind of set him up to be a more throwaway character because his actions in general were a lot more unrealistic than the main characters.
Yeah. But they didn't really zoom in or focus too much on the gore for him, which I do appreciate.
Yeah.
It wasn't really necessary. It was already heartbreaking, especially when you hear James kind of breaking down. He was my best friend.
Yeah.
He was my best friend. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
I can't believe I did this. Like, he's just completely broken
Yeah.
that he just killed his best friend thinking it was one of the intruders.
Yeah.
So, it was well done.
But do you have anything else to add to the realistic skill before we wrap things up?
I don't think so. It's just small things like that, really. Otherwise, it's a great movie. I
Yeah.
love it. Again, I've watched it like every year around Halloween since then. But it's also because when I first watched it, it was with my mom and sister, and we all love scary movies. So we had the whole place dark and all, and we watched it in the living room all together. It was a family movie night. And it's great. So it also brings back some really good memories for me too. I know this is one of my sister's favorites. So
that's it's definitely a good movie to watch with friends. Like we said before, don't expect this to be a fun horror movie. Like, it's going to chill you to the bone, make you fear, make you scared after the movie. Like, it's a lingering fear that kind of sticks with you for a little while. And I know that's not everybody's cup of tea, but
this is not the lighthearted one, guys. This is the really scare you at night kind of movie.
Yeah. But I mean, if you just like horror movies in general and you don't care if you feel good afterwards or not, then if you haven't tried this movie, give it a try. Just don't watch the sequel.
Yeah. We'll probably get to that at some point, but they should have just left it at this one. This one was great as is.
Oh, and I guess
we'll get to that other one later.
Some trivia on this movie. So in the beginning of this movie, they say this is inspired by true events, and then the way that they talk about the situation in the movie, they almost make it sound like they were copying it from like a crime scene or something like that. Well, what really inspired it is, I think as the director, the producer, he had a random person like come up to his door like late at night asking for someone that didn't actually live there. And so that kind of got his mental cogs turning towards like, well, what if they were killers? So it's not... It's very loosely based off of true events, but...
And they did say toward the end of the credits, that this is a fictitious event, like any relation to people living or dead is completely coincidental. This is a work of fiction.
Yeah, but it's like, especially in the beginning, they really kind of played it up, almost like what Paranormal Activity did.
Yeah,
where they kind of play it up.
And it kind of helps set the mood.
Yeah,
it does, because you're really thinking most of the movie, oh my gosh, this could really happen. So it makes it a bit more realistic when you're watching it, but it is a work of fiction.
Yep.
If it makes you guys feel better, it is completely a work of fiction.
Yep. Just inspired by something random that happened to the director/producer. Which, I mean, is actually kind of cool. I mean, obviously he's super creative if such a blasé situation like that could happen, and he's like, what if, I think that's kind of cool. And
I kind of imagine it as him, like, in the moment being really freaked out and his mind just going wild with, what if it's a killer? Oh my god, what if there are 3? Like,
maybe. But
what if they're wearing masks?
Like, I honestly kind of hope there'll be more movies like this are inspired by seemingly boring events, because it does kind of add an air of realism that you don't necessarily get if it's someone completely making it up. Like, if it doesn't have any sort of like base in reality.
Yeah. They do have a lot of room to play when they say based on or inspired by.
Yeah.
Like, okay, it's fake. We all know it's fake. You don't need to say based on or inspired by because it's all fake.
Yep.
And you just have a lot of room to play that way.
Yeah. Yep. But
So that's all I got here, guys. We do have a lot planned since Halloween is coming up, but please still feel free to leave suggestions for movies, things you want to see or hear. If they are already on the list, we might move them up a little bit so we get to them sooner. And if you have any ideas for things outside of movies that you want to see or hear from us with our posts on social media for like sweet treats or pumpkin carving or Halloween makeup or things like that, just let us know. We're open to ideas. We're super excited about this season. This is our time.
it's like
And
we're
I
gonna
know
hate
you guys
ourselves,
enjoy it
but
too.
we're gonna love it all at the same
We're gonna
time.
hate ourselves for all the editing and stuff we have to do, but worth it. So let us know, guys. And until next time, stay safe and stay spoopy.
Bye, guys.
Bye.